I have been accused of many things in my time. Having a too deep voice, being a little too flighty, getting far too worked up about typos in things. But a few weeks ago, an accusation was made that shook me to my core. Apparently, there are people out there who think I am somehow talented at crafts. And not only do I disagree with that in the strongest possible terms, but often this seems to be linked to the belief that the person doing the posting is not talented at crafts. This is a viewpoint I cannot let stand. I'm not talented at crafts, I'm just really persistent, and today I have brought proof. Earlier this summer, over on my Discord server, Anna was having trouble with the yarn requirements for this pattern, the Fergus Shrug by Bonnie Barker. Long story short, she decided to abandon the project for now and come back to it later. But too late! I'd already seen the pattern and I knew I needed to make it. So as September started to approach and I knew the finish or frog along would be starting over on Mastodon, I asked Anna if she'd maybe be interested in a two-person crochet along to get this done. Happily she accepted, and the stage was set. Now, I've never done cables in crochet before, I had no idea how they work going in, but I know they're easy enough in knitting, and I'm a pretty good crocheter, so I figured how hard can it be? The designer actually provides a video tutorial for this pattern going through the entire cable pattern step by step, so that was going to help too. My plan was to spend the last few days of August swatching and practicing the cable, and then as soon as September hit we would be able to cast on. We'd probably be done in a week. I mean, it's a shrug. It's basically a rectangle that's just seamed up part way. It's not complicated. Now, for the record, I admit that this level of confidence in trying new things does go a long way. Over time, I've definitely learned that some things are really easy for me to pick up and some things are much more difficult, and those same things might be completely the other way around for someone else. But I know I can always get there in the end. There was really no reason to think this would be any different. But being confident in your ability to figure things out in the end is not the same as being talented. So I swatched, and the smaller cable was easy, no problems at all, but the larger one, or more specifically one half of the larger one, just was a disaster. This was my very first attempt in random grey leftover yarn.
What is this?
Eventually, after a few more attempts at just the troublesome side of that cable, I managed to come up with this. Success! Of course, in hindsight, I definitely wasn't confident that I could recreate that consistently, but Anna had already got ahead of me and I didn't want to be left behind, so I decided to just dive in and figure the rest out as I went. Yeah, this is where confidence turned into overconfidence, as you will now see. Hi, it is now my second day of attempts on this project, and as I guess you've just heard from the intro, last night I felt like I'd practiced the cable enough that I could cast on the real thing and do it right. Turns out that wasn't the case, spoiler alert. So this is as far as I got. This is kind of, it's a general project setup row, then the first row of the cables, which is the complicated part, and then the second row of the cables, which if you've done the first row right, should be simple. But as you might guess, my second row wasn't simple. What's happened here is, well, actually, you know what? Give me a second, I'm going to put this under the lights so you can see it better. Honestly, don't really know if that's helped, but I'm just going to assume you can see what I'm talking about and go with it. So what happened is I did the row 1 of the cables going in that direction, and then row 2 coming back this way. Now, on the way there, this side of each big cable, can you see the big cable there? The left-hand side as we're looking at it was fine on each one. The right-hand side, much more complicated. On the way back, on the second row, working these cables was really difficult. I couldn't figure out what order to attack the stitches in, and that didn't seem to be the case in the video tutorial for the designer herself. It seemed much more simple, so I knew something was kind of amiss. But it was looking sort of like it's meant to, so I wasn't 100% sure. As I worked along though, first cable was difficult, second big cable, difficult. Third big cable, which is the first one I did on row 1, absolutely fine and much easier. So there is definitely a difference between this one and the other two. Now you might think, if the other two look fine, just leave it. Continue on from here, do it right from now on, and it doesn't matter, right? Except I don't know how to do it right from now on. I don't know what the difference is.
Also, I don't think you can really tell on camera, but this one, the one that's right, it kind of lies quite flat. But the ones that are problematic, this side is a lot puffier, it's kind of a lot bigger, and yeah, it's not super clear on video. Don't know if you can tell more from the back, it's quite kind of tangled up here. Yeah, I think something just got twisted, but I don't know what. It doesn't feel great, it doesn't feel the same as the other side, and I think if that happened on every row, I'd be pretty annoyed with the project by the end. So, plan is, rip that last row back out, get back to the original row 1 of the cables, and try and identify the difference between this and this. I'm not going to go any further with this project until I've got a believable hypothesis about what I did wrong and how to fix it. Alright, I have got a hypothesis. I've also got my camera on charge, so I'm filming this with my phone, so I hope it's not going to be too wobbly, but let's see. So this is the cable that is correct. I've frogged all the way back, and you can see the front and the back lie nicely parallel to each other. Everything is fine. This is an example of one where that is not the case. The front and the back are not nicely parallel. They do not lie flat. Something has gone wrong. Now, how to demonstrate this with only one hand, because I'm holding the phone. Right, so it looks like, so what you do these 3 in front first, and then you come back and you do the 3 at the back through a little hole down here. Now it looks like I have done the first of the back 3 stitches correctly, but then with the other 2, I've sort of, I don't know if you can see it there, I'll maybe try and annotate the video. These 2 are sort of crossed over that back bit there, and that's not the case on the cable that is looking right. So I think what I've done is basically just when I'm pulling through from the back, I've kind of come out at the wrong place, and I need to pay more attention to what I'm doing there. That is my theory. I think that's the root of all of my issues. I'm going to give it a go, and we will see.
Dearest crafting friends, it is my enormous pleasure to announce that row 2 of the cable pattern went fine.
Victory! We have victory!
It still doesn't look like much, I admit, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to add the other 2 rows that complete the cable repeat once, and then I'm going to make a start on row 1 again, the second repeat, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to try and show you what I was doing before and what I'm doing now and what difference that makes.
So this is where we've got to. As you can see, I've got successful cable crosses on the big boy and the little boy. Oh, okay. I've just realised that this one is wrong. What's going on there? So I am going to have to rip this row back. But my point is, I'd got almost all the way to the end and then set up for the next big cable. And I'm going to show you what I was doing wrong, what I'm now doing right, and then I'm going to rip that whole row out and go back and fix that bit at the beginning. For God's sake.
Editing Michelle here. I did film a long-winded demo of what I'd been doing wrong, but as you can see, I managed to get it wildly out of frame. So let me sum up. In this photo, I'm just about to make the second of those 3 back stitches. I've inserted my hook in front of the stitch I've just made, which you can see because the working yarn is in front of this little bar here, and the observant will notice that this is exactly where those problematic stitches were appearing before in the twisted up cable. Compare it to this image where I insert the hook behind everything instead. That's what I should have been doing all along.
I got so overexcited at finally figuring it out. I've done both sides of the cable the same, the difficult way, instead of actually remembering to do the easy side.
As if by magic. Look at the cabling on that. Funny thing is, of course, now I know what I was doing wrong. I can look back at the tutorial video and I can see what she's doing with her hook. I can see that she's going right in behind and she's not pulling up through the middle like I accidentally was. But at the time, I was watching that on slow-mo. I was like on half speed watching that video, and I was still just convinced that I was doing the exact same thing as I was seeing on screen. Even though clearly I wasn't. I don't know, there's probably some kind of really deep crafting life lesson in here somewhere, but I'm gonna leave that to future me to articulate. Just like that, all of my problems were solved with one tiny little change. And now I have this amazing shrug to show for it. So what can we learn from this journey? Well, we've definitely learned that I am not naturally talented at crochet cables. But beyond that, and this has been borne out time and time again in my experience, is the lesson that natural talent is all well and good. Some people have it at certain things, some people don't. But it's almost always going to be overcome by just putting some effort in to learn. We're all talented at different things, and if you want to learn something new, chances are you are going to have to work at it at least a little bit. You got to learn to enjoy the challenge of new things. It's the only way. I am not talented at crafts. I just work at it. I'm methodical. I am definitely persistent, but I'm also just some rando with a camera, and apparently owning a camera makes people think you're better at things than they are. Of course, I do have plenty of advantages. I have 2 hands, 10 fingers, decent motor skills. And if you want to call all that talent, then fair enough. But by that definition, most of us are going to qualify. Congratulations, we're all at least a bit talented. As you've just seen, I make mistakes just like everybody else. I struggle, sometimes a lot, to learn new things, just like everybody else. And in fact, my sometimes overconfidence means I'm actually quite bad at crafts. I have a whole video dedicated to my knitting and crochet fails over the years if you don't believe me. Basically what I'm saying with this video is that I'm more about enthusiasm than skill, and I'm completely okay with that. I wish more people could be okay with that for themselves. I see so much self-doubt, especially on social media, and it almost always stems from people comparing themselves to others that they perceive as more talented. And it is wild to think some of them are comparing themselves to me, because as we've seen, my projects are often very jank. Bottom line, that comparison stuff is all crap. If you feel like you want to post, but maybe your cross stitches are too messy, or you think your knitted ribbing leaves weird gaps and you don't know what the problem is, post it anyway and just ask. If there's one thing crafters love, it is looking at pictures of other people's crafts. If there's another thing crafters love, it is definitely sharing our knowledge. We are not going to judge. Your projects don't need to be special, you don't need to be special, you certainly don't need any of this so-called talent. Just make things that make you happy, and if you want to share them on the internet, go for it, and if you don't, don't. Anything else is just stressing for absolutely no reason, and this is coming from someone who finds a way to stress about almost anything. So if I say it's not worth it, it is definitely not worth it. Alright. If this video had a structure when I started, it's definitely off the rails now. But this talent thing has just always been a sore point with me. Can you tell? And maybe my ranting will get through to someone. You never know. Ultimately, since talent is something you can't control, I find it pointless to measure myself against it. But how about you? Do you consider yourself or other people you know to be talented at crafts? Do you think there's any such thing? I'd genuinely love to know, even if it means you disagree with every single thing I've said in this video. Thank you as always to my supporters over on Ko-fi, who presumably do like my occasional rants at least a little bit. And especially to the Stitch Squad, who currently are Mary Ann Johnson, Sunny, Candy Riley Pettinger, Laura Salletz, Enlightened Flamingo, Cross Stitch the Globe, I'd Rather Be Stitching, Angela Sue Harrison, Emily Hobbs, Lee the Cozy Crafter, Asta Vinka, Callie Jenny, Sarah, Angela Wells, Enraged Flamingo, and Kaylin. I'll be back soon with some more crafty nonsense, so in the meantime, have a brilliant rest of your day and keep making cool stuff and sharing it on the internet.